incredible speaker this morning, joining us from Africa, introduced by Dan Hunt.
Thank you, Margaret. Today is Tuesday, January 26, 2021, and this is the regularly scheduled Tuesday morning meeting of the Edina Morningside Rotary Club. Our speaker today is Battalion Commander Lieutenant Colonel Chip Rankin of the Mankato-based 2nd Battalion, 135th Infantry of the Minnesota National Guard. When I first spoke with Lieutenant Colonel Rankin last year, I detected a high level of humility, thus I'll keep my remarks about him to a minimum, but I will point out that this 45-year-old man has spent more than 3 years of his life overseas, serving his nation, including 1 year in Afghanistan and 2 years in Iraq. His stateside job is superintendent of Minnewash area schools located in west central Minnesota. Chip and his wife have 4 children, a 17-year-old son and 3 daughters, ages 6, 4, and 2. The battalion is on a peacekeeping mission in Djibouti as part of Operation Enduring Freedom. While there, the battalion has become involved with the many orphanages nearby, and that is the presentation today. Members, please remember you can post your questions to the chat, and at about 8:25, we'll start asking Chip questions. Chip, welcome to our club, and we're very excited to hear from you.
Hey, good morning, everybody. It's so nice to hear so many Minnesota voices. It's just so you know the time difference, it's going on 1700 or 5 o'clock in the evening here in Djibouti. I'm actually doing this Zoom call in the Red Cross building because it has the most reliable Wi-Fi. Because you can imagine in an Army office, we don't necessarily have Wi-Fi, and we're on a government network, so and they're secret, so you can't necessarily have Wi-Fi. So you look at my office, this isn't really my office. This is a storage room in the back of an emergency Red Cross building here on base. Joining me is my chaplain, Chaplain Hickory Smith, if you weren't here earlier. Chaplain Smith grew up in the Fergus Falls area. I've known him since almost 20 years. He's a chaplain back home in Minnesota with the Guard, and he's the spearhead of a lot of these efforts here in the community. And as previously mentioned, my name is Chip Rankin. Been here. Oh, I'm the task force commander. If you want to go to the next slide, I'm the task force commander for Task Force Bayonet. Bayonet is, as previously mentioned, we are an organization from Mankato, Minnesota. We have units in our headquarters is in Mankato, and we have units in Austin, Albert Lea, Winona, Owatonna, Rochester, and West St. Paul and Faribault. And I have soldiers from 12 different states, 300 communities. Right now we have roughly 965 soldiers. We left Minnesota back in June of 2020, and we have roughly 75 days left here in Djibouti. So we're pretty excited to see next Monday because it's the 1st of February. So we close another month out, and it's an honor to be here today. I'm a Rotarian out at the Glenwood Club. And so I contacted Lloyd a few months ago, our president, and I think our president-elect from Minnesota, and or governor, I mean, and I shared some of this. So yeah, this is a copy. This is a picture of our unit. This is a picture we took down in Mexico. So we left. We went to Camp Ripley. COVID broke out. I was here on a recon with my leadership team, and we got back to Minnesota. And yeah, it's been interesting because we were right at the beginning last year when we got here. So next slide. This is where we're from. We have the majority of soldiers. If you want to advance the next slide, please. So the majority of our soldiers are from Minnesota. We do have a unit out of Iowa, and we have a unit out of Chicago. And we are the main conventional forces on the whole continent of Africa for the United States military. We're on a peacekeeping mission, as mentioned, and I also have the responsibility for a East African Response Force. If you've seen the movie 13 Hours on the Benghazi attack, one of my units is responsible for going anywhere in Africa within 6 hours. So they and I would go with them. So we would do that mission also. Next slide. So why are we? This is kind of what we do. We're all over, mainly Eastern Africa. So if you don't know where Djibouti is, it's a small country, and it's a hub because it has a strategic port. And so there's international airport here, but everything out of Eastern Africa, this is one of the main ports that everything filters into. So there's a lot of stability here in Djibouti. It's and so that's also why when you see this kind of war-torn region, why it becomes the hub for a lot of migrants and refugees because they are fleeing conflicts in Somalia, Ethiopia, Sudan, and even coming across from Yemen. So this is a laydown of my units and what they're doing. We have units in Somalia, Kenya, Djibouti, Ethiopia, currently supporting stability operations. Next slide. So this morning, I'm presenting to talk about one of the things we do is we support Operation Caritas. And Caritas is an international organization that helps with refugees, or mainly what's the right word, Hickory?
Poor and destitute.
Yeah, poor and destitute. And what you see is a large number of children that flee conflict, especially in the last 3 or 4 months. There's a Catholic church here. Djibouti is mainly Muslim, but there is an actual Catholic church cathedral. There's a bishop, 2 priests, and they take a lot of these, unfortunately, a lot of these children that have lost their parents in conflict. And if you look at the last 4 months, there was rebellion up there in Ethiopia, in the Tigray region, and there was an influx of a lot of children who lost their parents and traveled 600 to 900 miles, no shoes, and it was a very tough journey. A lot of the girls, unfortunately, it was an even tougher journey for them. Many of them had to sell their bodies just to make sure that they would have enough food to get this far. A lot of violence. A lot of kids have seen a lot of violence, and so Djibouti is a very stable place, and it has a lot of resources because you have a lot of international competition here with China, Russia, the U.S., and a lot of our partners. So today, I want to present to you on one of the projects I reached back to Lloyd and my club about is how could we help stabilize some of these children of this war-torn region, just to provide some stability in their lives, to also keep them from being future fighters, as they are uneducated, underemployed, and underutilized, and also they've fled from their home country with no family, and so keeping them off the streets, out of violence and out of drugs, and just meet their basic needs. Next slide. So part of our stability operations that we do, we also do different missions. So in this particular mission, you'll see my Alpha company, which is headquartered out of West St. Paul. They're actually down in Kenya, and so they actually, they provide security. So you can see that we practice casualty care, we practice security operations, but we also, a lot of my soldiers, this is their first time ever being to a third world country. Now Kenya is not a third world country, but you get to certain regions, there is poverty like nobody's ever seen. I mean, I think we think there's poverty, but there's this poverty here is something that would just, it's shocking. A lot of kids don't have shoes, and so it's been amazing. I've only been in Rotary for a little over 4 years, but just the service aspect, a lot of our, the average age of my battalion, even though there's 950 soldiers here, is probably about 26. A lot of them probably haven't done a lot of service in their life, and they've never experienced this kind of poverty. So it's a life-changing event for a lot of my soldiers. It'll pull at your heartstrings when you go visit these regions. So one of the things we did here is just a local shoe drive. But just getting shoes from a Goodwill or a rehabilitation center in the States to here is not something that I don't have that kind of funds, and it's illegal to spend military funds on a humanitarian assistance. So it makes it very challenging. Next slide. So where does Rotary come into play? So this particular organization, Caritas, is an organization that is ran, a nonprofit organization. You can even advance to the next slide. And the background is Caritas International. You can see it's a confederation of over 160 members. It's already built on a church base. And you can click on that link and see all the work they do here in these war-torn regions. And we've partnered with them to make sure that we provide opportunities for some of these people that are in great need. And so it's very hard. There's about 400 to 500 people on this base, and my chaplain has been working with the multiple orphanages here in town to provide just basic essentials. Just because I've been in the military almost 27 years, I have a lot of connections. When I put this out, I think right now I have Boston Scientific, children's, the male, because I also have a lot of employees. The majority of my battalion lives in the metro area, and a lot of employees at, Boston Scientific, Land O'Lakes, 3M, so a lot of the major companies, and they're able to pull back with some of their connections. But when I talk to Lloyd, I just know, presenting to this group, the number of ideas that you would be able to come in and potentially help. The power of relationships and the power of connections can go a long ways. Next slide. More importantly, we didn't want to recreate the wheel. So the background here, you can see country Djibouti is mainly Muslim, has multiple orphanages. It's a war-torn region. You can see Caritas, 85% Ethiopians. A lot of them are because they're minority tribes or minority villages, or there's been conflict with the recognized current government. Then whoever's in power can sometimes get retribution on those who were in power, and so a lot of them flee to Djibouti because it's very stable. Because there's a port here, there's a lot of money that flows through here. They're able to provide, their security is it's pretty stable here. So when you come here, you don't see any conflict in the city. But you can see that only roughly 50 to 100 kids a day come in. They have no meals, no shoes, almost no clothes, simple cuts. They don't have medicine. They don't have vitamins. Many of them are malnourished, and many of them have seen conflict. And so we try to do what we can while we're here. Next slide. And so why are we doing this? First of all, stability operations is just creating those relationships with the local populace. So, my goal, obviously I grew up as a teacher and then as a principal, and I've been a superintendent for the last 4 or 5 years now. It's important that we do what we can to provide the stability into this region and leave it better than we found it. I also think that the future generations of our U.S. military, a lot of our soldiers have never witnessed this. I mean, we like to complain, and I even watch the stuff that's going back in the United States. And I grew up in central Minnesota on a dairy farm. Being to Iraq and being to Afghanistan, and then coming here, I would just love to take plane loads and plane loads of people and just bring them over here and then get a new perspective on how great we have it back in the U.S. Even on a 13 degrees below zero day, 1,000 times better than a lot of places that are here. And it just, our soldiers are touched, and I think it helps them want to serve, which is the core of Rotary. And I just think the appreciation my soldiers get from this also is beneficial, and the relationships they make. Next slide. So what do we do when we go? A lot of times we just provide stability. We go on Tuesdays, we connect with kids, we play with them, we hold the infants, and we assist in just simple maintenance at the orphanage. The amount of connections with 1,000 soldiers from the Midwest, Christmas, care packages up to the ceiling. People are, I feel bad because the amount of stuff sitting in just the storage room would be a blessing to the orphanage. So we try to take loads of stuff to the orphanage to a certain degree, but the need's so great that you really want to get to the core. So next slide. So what can Rotary help? There are a lot of different needs, but one of the clean, one of the projects I've seen in our local club was just getting clean water and reliable food. And we're not talking about hamburgers. We're talking about just rice and water. Can you go up 2 slides?
Sorry.
No problem. And you can see that they basically have a hole in the ground that they put some water in just to wash the clothes they do have. They get simple packaging out of to sleep on the floor. Most of them are allowed to stay in the orphanage. They have to leave at night just because they don't have 24-hour coverage, and honestly do not have the resources for these people, these young people, to stay there. And so one of the things I've thought about, particularly that I would address with you this morning, is a simple project that maybe we see if we can't get simple 500 shoes, just because a lot of kids come in here with no shoes, nothing, and simple cuts, simple medicines, just simple antibiotics, simple vitamins. Many of them are now malnourished, and just the power of $5,000 when you have 100 kids a day, when really their diet is just a piece of bread, some peanut butter, and some water that we wouldn't even use to go to the restroom in, is what they drink. but trying to find a reliable source. And so, one of my thoughts is seeing the power of Rotary and seeing the power of people back there that know connections, just simple things that we can maybe do as a project. This is an enduring base. There will be an American presence here. The space is pretty well built, and it will continue to exist. And there'll be chaplains like Chaplain Smith. There's already a chaplain coming in here. As we go out in 75 days, there'll be a new chaplain coming in. And so how could we partner with this one-turn region to just make the impact on just a simple everyday these kids' lives, just having something to clean up infections, something simple pair of dollar flip-flops that they would be proud to have. I just think how many shoes are in my house that should just go in a box and get shipped over here. These kids have never seen shoes, just simple pair of shorts and a t-shirt because they don't have any clothes. Just trying to see what we could do. And I just think the power of connections. So the reason I want to reach out to you this morning is I think this is a project that we could maybe take a look at. I'm going to work with my club when I get back home to Minnesota, but just like you, I'm going to get home at the end of April. And I'm going to connect with my family, and I'm going to put my rucksack down, and I'm going to hopefully get to, spend some time with my family, celebrate Mother's Day, go fishing for a little bit. I'll have to go back to work July 1st, and I'll have all the issues of Minnewaska Public Schools at the top of my head, and then, my unit. But I think that if we can get something going, this could be a Rotary connection across, our replacements coming from Vermont, Maine, and Connecticut. I think this is something that we could help with our, not just our local club, but pick a project and hand it off from Rotary to Rotary. What I did is I did send a PDF that really talks about, okay, so what could we do? And we talked about just simple clothing, sandals, shoes. A lot of times there's resources sitting there. It's just the power of getting them here. Non-perishables, rice, beans, lentils, peanut butter, Nutella, tuna packs, a simple use sheets and blankets. And then a lot of it's just cleaning and sanitation supplies. Children's reading books. You could just imagine a lot of these kids don't have much, and going from there. So what I did is I provided a simple PDF that we use here. There's a point of contact, and there is a place that you could, if the idea comes that you want to support something like this. I don't think I don't really want to get involved in a lot of money because, I'd rather see something. If you want to put money, just buy something on Amazon, just have it shipped here for free. Or if you have donations, you can mail them here and we will distribute them. We go to the orphanages every Tuesday, at least my chaplain does, and takes a team of 12 kids, 12 different soldiers, sailors, or airmen, and visits them every Tuesday, and tries to make as much difference we can. But a lot of times just connecting resources, people with resources to get them to hear where the need's at. I saw a question about COVID. COVID is not as prevalent here in Djibouti. I think a lot is because this is a pretty closed network. There is an international airport, and I think people do come in and fly in and come here, but I think it's a hub to go other places. And I would say the big difference between Djibouti and the United States is you cannot come here without a COVID test 2 hours before. And when you get to the airport, they're going to lock you down, make you take a COVID test, and if you test positive, they're going to lock you up for 14 days. Now, a lot of people in the United States would probably freak out because I have rights, but I also think that's why COVID has ran rampant back in the U.S. unfortunately, because everybody's got rights, and so it's not as prevalent here. We do take all the risk mitigations. We do the 3Ds. We, distance, disinfect our hands, and we also take preventive measures and wearing our masks. So we do that too. Next slide. So I'm the conduit here. Obviously, I'm the battalion commander. I'm a Rotarian. But I reached out to my club back home, and Lloyd put me in contact with Mr. Hunt. And, I just want to say it's an honor to present to you this morning. I think one goal, to sum everything up, is I think between my club and your club, we could put a grant together, and I think we could do something where we could put a $2 pair of shoes on every kid, in this orphanage site center. There's 5 orphanages, and I think we could cover for less than $5,000 for 5 years. And I think that'd be a major impact that we say we made a difference. And the reason I say shoes is because they don't have sanitation standards like we do. There's glass in the streets. It's very difficult. And it's very challenging. So I have 962 soldiers and I have 65 females. Because I'm an infantry battalion, we don't have as many females. Mainly we're in my HSC, which is my headquarters company. So I have a surgeon for the Mayo. I have 3 doctors. One's from Mayo. One's works right in the Metro. He's a PA, and then I have 45 medics. And so a lot of those are young med students. Actually, I have many nurses that work here. And a lot of our soldiers, after being to Caritas, don't want a care package at all given to them. They want to take everything and give it to these people because they feel very humbled after visiting them to help them as best they can. So this is a good point of contact, and these Hickory, even in 75 days, will be turning over to the next mission. So when the stuff comes here, these numbers stay the same. And then there'll be a good handover. And I'll always be a conduit to the organization because I know who's replacing me and I know who's replacing them. So this is not a one-time we could do something that could help. Yes, and Amazon does ship for free, which makes it great. What I have seen is I've had multiple church groups out to me, and what they've done is just go on to Amazon. They put in the address and all the shipping is taken care of when it gets here. It takes about a month. Nothing's quick, but you know, I would just say this group of people is very, very appreciative. So I'm going to wrap up from there, and I'll take any questions.
Great. Chip, thank you for a fabulous presentation. Tough things to hear as we sit in our warm homes in Minnesota, but we appreciate it. As you can see from some of the questions, there seems to be a desire on the part of our club to do some help. So I think I can say we look forward to working with you and being part of what you're trying to do here. I've got a couple questions that I've thought about since November, and they're more about you. And so we'll get back to your mission. But can you describe to the membership what it's like to be in the Guard and what it's like when you are notified that you're going to go out on a mission? What happens to your family life, your job, your friendships?
Yeah, so this is, as Dan mentioned, this is my 4th deployment. I was in Iraq in 2005 to 2007 with the Minnesota Guard. I was in Fallujah. I was a company commander for 180 soldiers, and actually our chaplain Hickory at the time was an E6. He was an enlisted soldier, and that was tough. I got the notification. It happened really fast. All of a sudden, we found out we had to go to Iraq, and we mobilized. We trained for 6 months, and we spent 19 months in country. I lost 3 soldiers. I lost a soldier from some great young men. We lost 9 soldiers in our organization, and I had 42 wounded soldiers, and that was extremely challenging. And it changed me for my life. I mean, I just think how challenging it was. I grew up as a central Minnesota, like I said, farm kid, and all of a sudden I'm leading combat operations in Iraq. And I don't know if anybody knows John Creasel, but Creasel's my unit. He was the state rep in the metro area, so you might know of that name. One of my soldiers. So I got home, and that was kind of tough. I was a teacher, and then I took a job as a principal in Mora. I did that for a couple of years in Bemidji, and then I spent 8 years as a principal in Pequot Lakes, up in the Brainerd Lakes area, which I just dearly loved. My wife was also a pharmacist by trade, so that was a little bit of a challenge. And I got notified I had to go to Afghanistan. It's very different. I was an advisor and trainer with the Afghan Army and Afghan police, so I embedded with the Afghans to help them guide missions. It was very interesting. But this current deployment, it's become more predictable. So you find out about 15, 18 months in advance where you might go and what the missions are going to look like. So you prepare for it. But the challenge is, with roughly 1,000 soldiers, the vast majority, almost 70% of my soldiers have never deployed. They're very young. They've never even been out in the United States. And so it's been real challenging. We haven't seen as much combat this deployment as I've seen in Iraq and Afghanistan, which is a blessing. And I have no problem with that, even though my kids, my soldiers, I call them my kids because I'm 46 and they're all like 21 and they all think they're going to war. I'm very happy that they're bored out of their minds because I'm going to bring them home to their moms, their dads, and their sisters and brothers. And so we are in Somalia, and it's been challenging for me personally. January was tough. I mean, I lost my mom. That's how I got to talk to Dan. My mom was diagnosed with cancer in October, and I got a good chance to go see her for a few days before she passed. But I haven't seen my kids since June. we missed, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and COVID has put a tremendous amount of stress on our families. Distance learning and not be able to see my, in-law, my mother-in-law, my grandmas and grandpas, aunts and uncles. And it makes it really tough on our families back home. And then the amount of stress with these young kids and young families makes it just, this deployment is almost as hard as some of the other ones because of COVID. So that's been a challenge. So, and for my job, you try to find a replacement, and I here in an hour, I got to go back to my room and try to connect with my school district, because every Tuesday I connect with them. And so all the challenges that exist there, and I'm just blessed, God's got a plan and he'll take care of us. And I would just say this in closing, for me, what an honor to lead such brilliant and talented soldiers. They blow me away every day, the things they do and how hard they work. And so it's just a pleasure to lead this large group of kids from the Midwest.
A couple more questions from our members. Paul Nelson asks, what was the transition with food, water, living conditions like? I'm guessing that the base has purified water and decent living conditions compared to the surrounding communities.
Yes, so we're very lucky. It's here on the base. We eat in galley. The base is ran by the Navy because of the Somali pirates. This is how it got started about 15, 16 years ago. They built a base here to defend American ships coming through, especially through the Red Sea here, just because of the amount of terrorist networks that were existing here in Yemen. And so that was a big deal. So we live on a base it's ran by the Navy. We eat in the galleys, so there might be some Navy veterans out there. There's a good rivalry between the Army and Navy, so we pick on them daily. But the food is, it's fine. There are a lot of restrictions with COVID. Everything's on lockdown here. Soldiers can't go anywhere. You can't leave base. You can't do anything. We do get exception to go to the orphanages, but it's been a little more. It's been a little more challenging being deployed.
Question from Steve Schmidt: is human trafficking a concern for the kids in the orphanages?
Yes, that young girl that you see in the picture, that's a result of many girls will sell their bodies to get something out of it before they, because they're likely going to be victims of human trafficking, and so they try to, I guess, put themselves in a place of advantage, because it's you're traveling 600-700 miles. It's very challenging. So a lot of these kids, you'll see a lot of cuts, wounds. They've been beat. Some will become slaves, and some will be kidnapped and they'll be forced to fight for these militias that exist. So yes, it's very, very prevalent.
Can you just drive the point home, and I appreciate how you presented this information. When you first got there, and then you met these kids at these orphanages, what kind of thoughts went through your mind?
Well, the reason, and the number one reason why I even took this on is, I'm a teacher at heart. I went to school at the University of Minnesota. I'm a biology teacher by trade, and I'm a coach. And when I got there and I talked to the priest who was doing mass here on base, and we had this mission to go. He shared with me how many kids were, ripping off glue. These kids were in pain. They were huffing glue. They were doing anything to get high because they were traumatized. And you just think in the world that we live in, that these young kids, many of them like 5, 6, 7-year-olds, are traveling sometimes 300 to 600 miles, no shoes, no food, no water, victims all along the way. It's hard to believe we live on the same planet. And I see the outrage that I have in, back home, what we complain about and what these kids have to, I wanted to bring, my wife and I wanted to bring a couple home and say, how can we just change these 2 people's lives? And so I think it's really important to think about how we can just make a difference in just, a few kids' lives. So for one night, they can go to sleep and not worry about being traumatized.
One more question, then Margaret will close our meeting. You talk a little bit about your 4 kids and what grade they are in school and what they're up to.
Yeah, my little Catherine Grace, she's all going to be grown up. She's got a birthday in 3 days. And so Catherine, it's funny. You look at these kids and I'm talking about just getting some, 79-cent, 79-cent flip-flops. And she's talking about, what she wants for her birthday. And it's like, it is hard because, when you go visit these kids and you see what they're drinking and eating, and I see her, what my gift to my kids has been a day with dad. So, it starts with donuts at, the local bakery. We're gonna go towards the Twin Cities. There's a special park actually there's the bungee cord park down by, I want to think it's down like I gotta think it might be down in Medina. They have this little park that they just love going to. And then you got to go to the Mall of America. We're gonna have a special lunch. They have the 9 treats we have to pick up. We're gonna spend 2 hours at the playground. They said maybe if I could go to a Twins game, but I think that was just to be nice to me. And it ends at like 2 in the morning as we're camping in the backyard in the tent. So that's the birthday present they get. And and to me, it's like these kids, the kids in this picture, it's an unfortunate deal and you can't help them all, but if you can do your little part, that's great. And so, my little Catherine Grace, her birthday is on Friday. Clara, she's my tough little lefty. And Rachel, she's the rule follower. And my son's 17. He's looking to be like mom, hopefully go to pharmacy school, and we're going to pay some college visits this summer. So, they're doing okay. It's a team effort. And so I think one thing I would ask this club to do too is I would love to, when we come home, we'd love to come visit you. Hopefully by then we'll have a face-to-face meeting and have a nice lunch and be able to share what you've done as a result.
Yeah. Chip, thank you very much for your time and the work you've done on behalf of our country, and we look forward to working with you. Thank you.
Yeah, can I just say one last thing?
Sure.
I would say for all of you on this morning, I see 32 people. No matter what you see or no matter what you hear, you would be so proud of these kids from Minnesota. And they're not all from Minnesota. They're from Minnesota, Wisconsin. The vast majority live in Minnesota. We got great kids. There's great kids coming through. Our future's bright. I got some amazing soldiers, that just bust their butts every day. And every day I'm more confident that, there's some stuff going on, but there's stuff going on every day. But good still prevails, and the future is bright because I got a lot of kids that can do a lot of great things. So thanks for having me today.
Great. Thank you, sir. Margaret?
Thank you, Chip, and thank you to everybody for joining us today. Oh my gosh, I'm sure everybody's just kind of just humbled by what we just heard and saw, and of course, thinking in our own heads what we could possibly do to help and support in the future. So I said in the chat box, we will be discussing this, the leadership team here at Edina Morningside, putting together a plan. And Chip, please have Lloyd get in contact with me. I know Lloyd very well, as does Tom. And I think we can meet even possibly just starting with us, but make this a little bit bigger than just us. So nice to have the district governor in our club who knows everybody. And when there's a call for help, Rotarians are always there to just jump up and serve. So that's what we do. Anyways, just want to wrap up with just a mention of our next speaker is Matt Lewis from Greater MSP for next week. So please join us. I'm sure that'll be an incredibly interesting discussion on what's happening in our metropolitan area. Dan, thanks again for getting Chip here. And Chip, oh my gosh, again, thank you for joining us, fitting us into your crazy schedule. We are very, very blessed to have heard what you had to say today, and we look forward to seeing you in the future and sitting down, yes, face to face someday, hopefully soon. So anyways, everybody have a great week. Remember, Rotary opens opportunities every day. They're there. Just look for them and you will find one. So thanks again, everybody. See you next week.